Senator from Arizona.
All right, thank you. And I'd like to say to the senator from Vermont that I respect a great deal the work that he has done on this legislation. I respect his commitment and his leadership of the Veterans Affairs Committee. I respect the fact that Bernie Sanders is known as a fighter, and it's been a pleasure to do combat with him. But I also would like to say that at the end of the day, with both strongly held views on different aspects of this issue, we were able to come together, I believe, in a way that will help to relieve this terrible tragedy that seems to have befallen our nation's veterans. It started in Phoenix, Arizona, as my colleagues know, but it has spread all over the country. And it begins with the terrible story of perhaps 40 veterans having literally died for lack of care. I don't need to go through all of the different problems that have surfaced in the ensuing days since that began. But there should be no doubt in anyone's mind that we should accept the word of the Inspector General, who said, these are systemic problems. This isn't a scheduling problem. These are systemic problems that need to be addressed. And you know, our hope as we concluded this legislation is that perhaps we could put some of our other differences aside that have beset this body and move forward and address this legislation as quickly as possible and begin to repair the damage, because we have, for all intents and purposes, in some ways betrayed the brave men and women who were willing to go out and sacrifice for the well-being and freedom of the rest of us. So again, I want to say to Senator Sanders, I appreciate his leadership, and I appreciate the fact that we both had to make some very tough compromises. But I've found in my experience that when tough compromises are made, usually that's a sign of bipartisanship and a sign that it's a good piece of legislation. I know that isn't the popular thing to say nowadays in today's political environment, but I don't believe if compromises hadn't been made that we would be bringing to the floor of the Senate and working with the House, as Chairman Jeff Miller over there, that we would be doing what we are introducing today. I'd also like to say a word about two other individuals, and that's Senator Burr, the ranking member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, who I admire enormously. He has worked tirelessly on behalf of the veterans. He is a most respected member of our conference. And of course, our most unique treasure, Dr. Tom Coburn, who had been my nominee to take over the Veterans Administration, which almost destroyed a long and beautiful friendship. But Dr. Coburn is he's the conscience of our conference. He is the person that we look up to and admire the most for his integrity, for his honesty, his intelligence. And I want to thank both Senator Burr and Dr. Coburn for the enormous work. In some ways, I'm sort of the spokesperson when they really did a great majority of the work. As Senator Sanders pointed out, I'd like to just cover several aspects of this legislation and try to explain a little bit why some of these provisions are there. Of course, a top priority for me for many years has been to give the veteran a choice. We ought to give a veteran a choice, the same choice that people who are Medicare recipients, who have TRICARE, that's the military health care program, where if they're outside of 40 miles from the nearest VA facility, if there's a wait time which is unacceptable, then they should be able to go to the health care provider right near their home, not have to get in a van and ride for 2 or 3 hours for a routine medical care. Now, I also want to emphasize What I hope my colleagues understand, that this is no way a comment on the Veterans Administration. I'll leave that to others and other judgments, because there are things done in the Veterans healthcare system that only the Veterans healthcare system can handle. PTSD, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury, prostheses, war wounds, that only the VA can do. And none of this that we are saying in any way denigrates or does anything that is uncomplimentary to the outstanding men and women who work in this system. We are proud of their work. It's the system that needs to be fixed. So I don't want anybody who is associated with the Veterans Administration to believe that we are criticizing them. We are talking about a system that must be fixed. It's urgent that it be fixed. Every single day that goes by, a veteran is deprived of the care that he's earned serving this, he or she has earned serving this country. And that's why I urge my colleagues, if you have amendments, if you think that you can make this bill better, we welcome it. We'd be glad to discuss with you amendments to this legislation. We'd be glad if you know how to make it better. But in the meantime, can we sort of pledge that we are committed to seeing this thing all the way through? I would urge my colleagues to do that. And again, I know I speak for Senator Sanders when I say, you've got a way to make this bill better, this legislation better, come on in. But let's not get hung up on certain other aspects of our differences that have characterized what most people would view as gridlock in this body. So I urge my colleagues to look at this compromise, and it is a compromise, and see if you want to think you can make it better. We welcome your input, but also we would like to have your commitment to seeing this thing through to the President's desk. And I know that over on the other side of the Capitol, they're working hard on this issue too. So we bring up, as I mentioned, veterans should have that card. That veteran should be able to go to the facility of his or her choice. Accountability. Senator Rubio and others, Congressman Miller and others have introduced legislation. Senator Sanders has made it, I think, improved on it. And this calls for immediate firing. And immediate firing if there is evidence of work that is not in keeping with the standards that we expect of our employees. And during that period, under appeal, that person will not receive a salary. But that person will have some due process. 7 days to appeal to the Merit Systems Protection Board, and there's 21 days for that Merit Systems Protection Board to render a final decision. Yes, we should have, as many of our colleagues want, accountability. But that accountability also in this proposal allows for due process for someone to at least hear their case heard. Expedited hearing authority for VA doctors and nurses, and additional authority to hire new providers. Now, there is unobligated funds out there, and we are going to use unobligated funds to hire more doctors and nurses where they are needed. But I'd also point out, in some cases, doctors and nurses have to work harder where they are. Also, there are now pending, over the years, administration requests for 26 major facility leases to be entered into. Now, this has been the President's request. This has been a bipartisan agreement on the need for these facilities, and I believe that we should proceed with it. And I would also point out to my colleagues, this legislation has some expenses, but the major expense is to move forward with the construction of these major medical facilities all over America. And in the view of all, it is necessary. This improves the access to health care for individuals who are the victims of military sexual assault. Sexual assault is probably one of the most vexing issues that we face in the military today outside of combat. We don't know exactly what causes some of this. We do know that many times it is because of a lack of discipline. But there's no doubt that this is a problem in the military that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, mothers and fathers will be not agreeable, in fact, reluctant to have their sons and daughters serve in the military unless we address this issue of sexual assaults. And there are many efforts going on in the Defense Authorization Bill, within the military, many other areas where we're working on this issue, but I think this provision of the bill will be very helpful in attempting to address that issue. A commission that needs to be appointed on scheduling and care. We know one of the problems is scheduling, and this whole issue of phantom lists and waiting lists that disappeared and all that is, we've got to get to the bottom of it, and I think the smartest people in America could help us on that, and another commission on capital planning. What our needs are, veterans. One of the things we do know, that we have an aging veteran population from World War II, those that are, God bless them, that are still with us, Korea and Vietnam. That is an aging veterans population and requires a different kind of care than those of Iraq and Afghanistan. And be frank, a lot of that is geriatric care. To be frank, geriatric care is very expensive. But we've got to understand who this population is and what their needs are, just as we have to understand the Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans and what their needs are. And very frankly, our planning so far has not been very impressive to me. We need to have this is a pure Senator Sanders initiative, a GI Bill, tuition eligibility for surviving spouses of those who die in the line of duty. It seems to me that's only fair. And a provision also that in-state tuition will be provided for all veterans at public colleges and universities. Now, again, finally, I want to say thank you to Senator Sanders. And I also want to ask my colleagues again, this is not a perfect document. We are ready, I think, to see any changes that we would consider and perhaps germane amendments. But I would also hope that we could focus our attention on the bill and the efforts we need to help our veterans as opposed to other issues which seem to be with us on a daily basis. Madam President, I yield the floor.